how today is going to flow. I will momentarily introduce you to Nicole Stone, our head of school, who you have heard, chatting for a minute there with us. Nicole is our absolutely beloved head of school. She is highly respected and totally adored by every constituency here at CES. And she is the visionary and the organizer behind all of our success and our planning. So after Nicole says hello, then we do have 3 students speaking today. They are busy, talented young people, and one of them has a time commitment to, she's very talented in a lot of areas, and she has to go pursue one of those talents. So we're going to let Juliet speak just before our keynote speaker, who is Dr. Regier, and I look forward to just saying a couple words about Natalie before she speaks. Once she's completed her presentation, then I am going to do a photo presentation about a day at CES, and more about that when that happens. Following that, we do have 2 more wonderful student speakers and 3 faculty members who represent our lower school, our middle school, and another represents our special subject areas. And depending on your schedules, we will allow some time also for Q&A. So, Nicole.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Stone. It's a pleasure to be here. Open houses have changed a lot this year, but it's still sort of nice, and it's good to see everyone's faces here. And I hope we can answer all of your questions with our presentations today. It is really a pleasure to work at Christ Episcopal School. It is what we call a gem of a school, and that seems to be what people say about us. It's hard to put your finger on what it is about our school that draws people to us, but interestingly, I just had a conversation with one of our alumni parents today, and he's now, his daughter is graduated and at high school, and he's like, I miss CES so much. There's something at CES that's different from every other school, and it has to do with the community and the way the kids are treated and how everyone loves and looks out for each other, and that really does define who we are. Now, we do have academic excellence as well, but that's the baseline in this area, right? So one thing we just really pride ourselves in is that sense of community, that attention that each student gets, that care for each student. It's been a really tough year. It's been a tough year for all private schools. We've gone through so many changes this year, and it's through this change that we're getting stronger. I think we are redefining who we are for the future. We are still embracing our core values, but we are truly looking forward. We are modernizing, we are changing and adding to the programs that we offer. So it is an exciting time to come to CES. We are adapting, we are changing, we are incorporating our parent community as well in this change. So we can't wait to see what happens next year. One thing in particular, some of the things that are coming up, just to give you a little preview. Obviously, COVID, we're extremely COVID careful. We are in person, more than 75% in person for both divisions, and we have been very successful doing that. We take all those precautions very seriously. I anticipate next year being 100%. I think that is totally manageable, and given what's going out there with vaccinations, we have our teachers, our in-person teachers are 100% vaccinated now. So we have that in place. In the summer, we're going to be opening a summer preschool summer camp for 8 weeks. We're also offering a summer virtual academy, which will be a virtual academy, 1-hour workshops on specific topics like math and English and writing and little topics. If maybe there was some COVID slide out there, we're offering that kind of enrichment and reinforcement. And then next year, one of the big projects we're working on is a STEAM classroom. So we're combining our art and our science classroom into one. We are going to try to incorporate a makerspace. We are going to have programming that revolves around that. Our science teacher is an artist, and we're going to have an art teacher work together with the science teacher. It's just going to be an exciting new program that we're going to incorporate. In addition to that, we're going to really revamp our after school program to focus on those areas that people really want to see: the technology, the coding, the STEAM, obviously we'll have that in place, the robotics, the art, and then of course fitness, and something else that I want to do is more of a tutoring sessions, tutoring, homework helpers, to offer that all on campus. So we'll really have full day care available for those who are interested. Now, I don't want to go on too long. I want to let the teachers talk about curriculum and what they do in their classrooms and in their specific divisions. But let me just say, I just think it's a great time to come to our school. I love the school. I've been here since 2014. I started off as a teacher, so my heart is really in this school, and I hope you all consider us as one of your top choices.
Nicole, thank you so much. Juliet. Oh, I could almost well up with tears when I look at these kids who are here to talk to you today. Oh my goodness, what treasures. Juliet has been with us since preschool, and she will graduate this year. She follows behind an older sister and brother who also went all the way through CES. Juliet is a student ambassador. She is talented, she is gracious, she is well-spoken, and given her many, many years at CES, is well chosen to talk to you about some of the highlights and reflections that she has on her years at CES. So Juliet, thank you.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Juliet. I'm in 8th grade, and like Ms. Gerber said, I've been here since I was about 3 years old. People are usually surprised when I tell them how small CES is. We usually get a gasp or oh wow, that's so small. But I think of it as a positive. There are so many positive opportunities with this small school. Everyone knows everyone, no matter the grade, no matter the age. Kindergarten knows 8th grade, and so on. It's so easy to have one-on-one time with teachers. If you're falling behind in a class or you're struggling with the material, it's so easy to just pull a teacher aside, ask them to maybe explain it in a different way. And all the teachers are just eager to teach you the material, and they want you to learn. Another benefit is our hands-on activities, and our main one is our field trips we go on. We do things like Lincoln's Cottage or Gettysburg for history class, Echo Hill and Kaleva for our team building activities, and then even our fun end of year trips like Hershey Park or even the Baltimore Zoo. Another benefit is our PE program. We have many unique activities we do, like boxing, gymnastics, swimming, and once a week we do walks through Rockville Town Square. Being back in person, if you can imagine, has been so much easier, even though we can't do all of our activities since we have COVID. But with the things we can do in person, we do science experiments, hands-on math games with blocks or measurement tools, and Spanish activities, and many more things in different classes. Not only has CES prepared all of our students academically, but they've also helped with my confidence. Students at CES can have grown-up conversations with teachers or parents or any other adult. Constantly at CES, we have opportunities for public speaking, like scripture readings during chapel, our musicals, and even just textbook readings during class. Although I'm leaving next year to go to high school, CES has prepared me to go into high school ready academically and mentally. I'm going into high school with a confident mindset, knowing that I'll be able to keep up with the material and learn with the material that CES has prepared me with. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them before I head off the call, but thank you.
Oh, Juliet, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Juliet? We'll let you go on to the next chapter of your day, Juliet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I know that so many of you are just so eager to hear from our keynote speaker today, and we are just honored that we have her here today. Dr. Natalie Regier is a assistant professor and clinical psychologist at the Johns Hopkins School of Nursing. Before she actually gets the stage, I have to tell you, she is also a treasured parent in our community. She's a lower school parent. We couldn't be happier that her family chose CES, and she and her husband and family quickly became huge supporters, huge active participants in school life here at CES. So Dr. Regier, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you very much, Janet. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see the presentation today. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that, okay? And I'll start the slideshow. Okay, so thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am a CES parent. My name is Natalie Regier, and I'm a clinical psychologist, assistant professor, and researcher. And my oldest is in kindergarten, and she's the oldest of three. My youngest is a pandemic baby, so I really empathize with parents in regards to the challenges of parenting through the pandemic. So we'll talk about some of that today. Okay, so here's the agenda. First, I'm going to discuss, as the title said, the impact of the pandemic on child and adolescent mental health. Then I'll talk about what parents can do to maximize their children's well-being in the continued COVID-19 environment, since we're not entirely out of the woods at this point. And then I will discuss some of the ways that Christ Episcopal School has supported the mental health of its students during the past 13, 14 months. So we'll start by talking about the mental health effects of quarantine and physical distancing. Quarantine children have high rates of anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic symptoms. And children in the US who were quarantined during SARS H1N1 had PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD scores that were 4 times higher than children who did not need to be quarantined during that time, and 30% met criteria for PTSD. And so the fact that PTSD was so prevalent as a result of what was a relatively short-lived infectious disease outbreak like SARS suggests that as we continue to follow our children who were affected by the quarantines, there will likely be large segments of children who are experiencing residual or long-lasting distress and trauma, since this pandemic was on a much larger scale than H1N1. In terms of emotional and behavioral disturbances, younger children may be clingier or regress to kind of an earlier developmental stage of behavior for a time. In terms of behaviors, older children might become angrier, more restless and withdrawn while in quarantine. Children might display their worries in ways that parents or caregivers might interpret as defiant behavior. Symptoms of anxiety and depression are common due to quarantine. There was a review recently of 32 billion private mental health care claims that found for major depressive disorder in teens, claims for that increased 84%, and generalized anxiety disorder claims for teens increased 94% in April of 2020 as compared to April of 2019. So that was an enormous jump. Mental health claims for intentional self-harm in teens increased 99.83% in April 2020 as compared to April 2019. And other consequences in the literature include increased irritability and grief. So children can experience grief over what has been lost as a result of the pandemic. And these can even be things like senior prom, class trips, separation from grandparents and friends, school campus for a time, and so on. So this is a slide of a summary of risk factors for depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, suicidal ideation and self-harm, and grief as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I'm not going to read it all out loud, but I will say that the good news is that even if your child is experiencing or has experienced adverse mental health outcomes associated with this pandemic, 70 to 75% of kids who've developed mental health related symptoms are expected to come back down to baseline functioning within about a year. Now, the other 25 to 30% of kids who develop symptoms that stay elevated over time can also get back to baseline, but they might need additional supportive interventions and proactivity on the part of their parents. So who is most at risk for developing adverse mental health outcomes? Based on studies of other pandemics and disasters, we expect that the kids who are most likely to develop longer lasting mental health problems are those with the highest exposure to stressors related to the event, in this case, the pandemic. So the single stressor that has the largest impact on kids in terms of developing persistent elevations in mental health symptoms is someone who's had a family member die of COVID. Having a family member who's also gotten sick with COVID is a risk factor as well. The experience of major financial stressors, either loss of income for a parent or difficulty meeting basic needs like food and shelter. Another risk factor is exposure to discrimination related to the pandemic, such as the heartbreaking uptick in violence and discrimination we're seeing right now towards persons of Asian descent. Severe conflict in relationships with someone they live with. For example, children suffering from abuse or neglect in the home, in which case in-person school could have provided a reprieve from that treatment and that relationship. Disruptions in relationships with peers and teachers. Younger kids especially don't have phones or ways to check in with friends regularly that don't require their parents taking initiative to organize something on their behalf. And also, kids might just not have adequate access or needed one-on-one time to their teachers in a virtual environment. And finally, on this list, there are kids whose home environments are less conducive to being able to do remote schooling, whether it's because of access to technology, crowding, lack of private space, or other environmental distractions. So these are just a few examples, but the more of these experiences that pile on, the more likely the child is to have experienced an increase in mental health problems during COVID. So what can parents do? Now, of course, the period of the most acute crisis is behind us because of the vaccines we have now and what we've been able to learn about the virus and how to protect ourselves. But this information could be helpful in the future, and some of it is certainly still applicable at this time. So first, information about the disease and reasons for safety measures should be given in age-appropriate language. And you should correct any misunderstandings your children have about the virus or vaccines. Close and open communication about the virus between parents and children can serve as a protective factor in children's mental health. Parents should look out for meaningful changes in behavior and address those as appropriate. Expressing worries or fears are common ways that anxiety gets expressed in children. So often in young children, you get more somatic complaints like persistent headaches, reports of stomach aches, things like that. And I want to clarify that you should focus on changes in emotional reactions and behaviors that are persistent, not just something that manifests when a child has a really tough day, but then remits. You all experience tough days, your kids will, maybe even weeks where we feel a little more worried than normal, experience some more symptoms like trouble sleeping than normal, but it's when it becomes a persistent change for weeks and weeks that parents should be concerned. And also make sure not to pathologize everything. So it's normal to see, especially in young children, like I mentioned, some transient regression to an earlier developmental stage in response to very serious stressors and changes in routine. So more often than not, our kids will get back on track relatively quickly. But when you notice these changes persisting over time, it might be a cause for checking in with a pediatrician or another medical provider. Also on the list, just being there for your kids and listening to them is tremendously helpful. Validating their feelings is key, but also providing them with encouragement, like talking about vaccination progress. Helping them navigate pandemic-related stressors, whether that's helping with online learning, organizing safe opportunities for socialization, or even seeking out a therapist if you find they need more formal intervention. Help your kids build resilience, and this involves teaching them things like being able to take healthy risks, how to solve problems on their own, making connections with others, having a strong moral code, having hobbies, and optimism and resiliency often go hand in hand. So teach them to look on the bright side in a way that's not unrealistic. When people are able to identify a benefit that can come out of a challenging situation, they have better mental health outcomes, especially related to depression, anxiety, and stress. Exercise is beneficial for both physical and mental health. You don't want any short-term increase in sedentary behavior during the pandemic to become a permanent part of their lifestyle, because this can lead to increased risk of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular issues that could carry into adulthood. And finally, or second to last rather, or fourth to last, particularly in the early days, I think the pandemic left a lot of us feeling adrift. Routines give us a real sense of control, purpose, and accomplishment, and help us stay on normal sleep-wake schedules, which is very important. Stability in routine is also a protective factor against depressive symptoms. And we know that maintaining some degree of in-person socialization is associated with better mental health. You want to balance screen time for kids. So I showed you research on an earlier slide that more hours on devices and social media is linked to higher depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and suicidal behavior. Even if kids are using their phones and devices in part to maintain social contact with each other, you still want to strike a balance. And finally, every child needs a repertoire of stress relievers that they can turn to. So encourage them to figure out what works for them and help them find out what works for them. So there is cross-generational stress associated with this pandemic, and your mental health affects your child's mental health. We know from research that when parents exhibit a lot of distress, when they're struggling to cope, you see that reflected in their children as being less likely to bounce back or recover after a stressor. Do your best to not express extreme anxiety and distress, especially in front of young kids, while still making space for open and honest conversations about how you feel. I don't advocate suppressing emotions. Of course, I'm a psychologist, but expressing extreme distress in front of your kids could be counterproductive. Practice self-care. I cannot tell you how many patients I've had who were caregivers and needed to be reminded of the airplane metaphor. So on the plane, in the event of an emergency, you're supposed to secure your mask before helping your child. You are a better care provider if you are also taking care of yourself. So don't feel guilty about that, and don't forget to do that. And also, as I mentioned earlier, when people are able to identify a benefit that can come from challenging situations, they have better mental health outcomes. And finally, on this slide, be kind to yourself. For the past 13, 14 months, we have all just been doing the best that we can. Most people probably did not implement all of the suggestions that I made here. More likely, we implemented some of them, or they were kind of scattered into our kids' routines and days. Some families, for example, may not have felt comfortable with socially distant play dates or in-person school. Some may still not be comfortable with those, and that's okay. Love and support are the most important things you can give your children. And if you were able to incorporate any of the other approaches, then that's great. Okay, so this is my final slide and details some of the ways in which CES has supported students' well-being throughout the pandemic. So CES got all grade levels back to campus as quickly as possible, and faculty made a point to strike a balance with maintaining the strong curriculum, but also emphasizing a love of learning and socialization or togetherness. The classes are small and the teachers know each child remarkably well, and they can tailor their approaches to the child's needs and can also identify any concerning behaviors, any changes in student behavior. Teachers keep the kids involved. Each classroom is incredibly cohesive in terms of classmates having very positive relationships with and respect for one another. There were several mid-year enrollments, and those children were immediately made to feel like a part of their class. There are regular class meetups that began last year and continue so that students can decompress and have fun with each other outside of school. The schedules incorporate daily PE, even during virtual school. There's daily recess for lower schoolers and daily break for middle schoolers. Whenever possible, lunch and special subjects happen outdoors to give the kids fresh air and the chance to move. 5th and 6th grade study skills class has mindfulness training, and this is a great method of coping with stressful situations. There's a real emphasis at the school on empathy, perspective taking, and service at CES. And kids who are able to empathize with others during the pandemic are better able to understand why certain sacrifices like mask wearing and distancing are necessary, and are more likely to have a higher degree of willingness to do those things. Empathy is also a value emphasized in chapel. The Chapel Partner Program between the 8th graders and the kindergartners is another thing that CES is doing to support relationships and connections. CES has worked very hard to maintain as much normalcy as possible, which helps when there's been so much upheaval all around us. And finally on this list, CES will soon be having weekly family picnics that anyone can attend if they're free. It's just another way to maintain that sense of close-knit community that is something of a hallmark of the school. So just to close and tie everything together, our youth have obviously been significantly impacted by school closures and physical distancing and everything that's changed in their lives this past year. But as I said, I don't want you to feel guilty if you haven't done all of the things that were suggested in the presentation, because we and our kids have all been doing the best we can in a situation that was unimaginable until we were in it. And the most important thing that our kids can receive is social support, especially the presence of a caring adult in their lives, and that includes caring teachers. As a psychologist and researcher, but also a CES parent, I do feel profoundly grateful for my daughter's school family for helping to shepherd her through an event that's really going to be a defining event in our children's lives. So thank you for listening. I wish all of you and your children the very best, and thank you so much.
Dr. Regier, thank you so much. How incredibly informative. Thank you. And Dr. Regier is a busy mom of 3 and a busy professional. I know that she will stay at the end for Q&A if she can. So we'll see how her schedule plays out. But again, thank you so much, Dr. Regier. With that, let's take a look at CES. Let's look at a day at CES through a photo presentation that, while we cannot welcome prospective families for a look while we are truly in action with the students and the teachers working together, we have a photo presentation of candid photos put together to capture a day at our school so that you can hopefully get a feel for our program and our community virtually. We do have a parent who is a professional photographer who takes candid photos for us every year. Most of these photos were taken just pre-COVID. But we did interspersed are some current photos of students and teachers distanced and in masks. So you see a little bit of what we're looking like right now. But most of the photos are what we hope and plan that we're going to look like in the fall. So now I will share my screen. As you can tell, our colors are red and white. We're the CES Cardinals. It starts with photos of our primary buildings. This is our church building. That's the historic church built in the late 1800s that will be housing all of our kindergarten through 8th graders under one roof next year. We're so excited, brand new and renovated. Then was a picture of our preschool house. This is morning arrival on a normal day when our patrols in the middle school help our teachers unload the cars. As part of many of our service projects, 4th grade traditionally helps to walk the preschoolers to the preschool house. So this is 4th grade with some of our preschoolers. Now, while we're primarily looking at kindergarten through 8th grade today, preschool is a big part of school life, and I would want everyone to know a little bit of what that wonderful dimension to our community looks like. And here are some pre-K students in masks and social distanced, having a wonderful time this year. They're just so happy to be here. This is in our church building, renovated, beautiful space, morning arrival, settling in. 2nd graders helping each other with their shoes. Middle schoolers welcoming each other, happy to start their day. This is, and you're going to hear from Mrs. Filderman. She's our kindergarten teacher and our lower school team lead. This is Mrs. Filderman with some kindergartners. Our 1st grade teacher, Miss Doolin. Small classes, lots of leadership, lots of standing up, lots of presenting, and they all quickly are very comfortable with it. We do a lot of teamwork. You'll see a lot of photos where students are working in a small group. This is a group of 2nd graders doing a team project. They collaborate, they problem solve, they research, and they present together. A life skill that we know is very important in their futures. There's Caleb and some other 4th graders, and you'll be hearing from Caleb. There's Juliet with her chapel partner. Chapel is a very important part of our day that we hope to resume in the fall in the historic church that, again, is the foundation of our campus. You're going to be hearing from Izzy. There's Izzy doing a high five. These girls are graduating this year. They all know, they've just learned where they've picked where they're going to go to high school. They have incredibly successful high school placement results, either in the local independent schools or the strong selective county programs. We teach study skills to our 5th and 6th graders. As Dr. Regier said, mindfulness is part of it, but so is note-taking, binder organization, time management, and so on. And that was Mr. Jacob. You'll hear from Mr. Jacob, our music teacher. This is our art program. Wonderful, rich, creative, engaging, exciting special subject areas. PE every day, very important to us. These students are working hard and we want them to get out and move and take breaks. So they have a wonderful structured but fun PE program every day. Of course, in addition to their lunch recess. And then our middle schoolers get another little break because we start early and we want them to just be refreshed throughout the day. Very active after school sports program for our middle schoolers. They compete against local independent schools. We also take our middle schoolers to wonderful professional sports facilities for professional instruction. Here they are taking fencing. You saw them at the local swim center. They go to a number of facilities in the area. Our Halloween parade on our green top, lower school parades, middle school watches, and then plans their own party. We do ballroom dance. We have done it for decades. They are learning the waltz, the foxtrot, the swing, and the cha-cha. They're doing it more these days to contemporary music. They're not waltzing to the Blue Danube, but they might be listening to Caribbean music, Christmas music, country music that has the right beat for that step. This is the recital at the end where they perform and then dance with their families. Lots of traditions at CES. Sixth grade always presents the Grinch. Musical performances to support the music program and our optional strings music program. Students have music twice a week. If they take instrumental music, they have an additional music every week. Our field trips, that's what the buses were telling you about. One of our many community events, this is our huge truck touch that fills our parking lot with about 25 exciting vehicles every year. This is our mascot, that's Comet the Cardinal. Tons of service, and it is service learning where the students learn the problem and work to solve some aspect of it themselves. They're not just bringing in $1 from home. These are current photos of students in masks, and our creative kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Filderman, has her students on yoga mats this year just for a little extra movement. This is our 4th grade class in their big space. We've maintained some field trips. This was a family field trip in the fall to go fossil hunting. And they're just so happy to be here. There's a lower school and there's our middle school. We're always proud to be one of Bethesda Magazine's Best of Bethesda vote getters. And thank you to our wonderful parent who takes most of these photos. So thank you for taking a good look at our very, very special school. And nobody has more valid things to say than the students. I mean, that is the work that we do, and they will tell you like it is. And I am thrilled that we have 2 more to hear from. Caleb started with us in kindergarten. His family moved halfway across the country, and we thought, oh no, Caleb might be gone, because we were just madly in love with him when he started in kindergarten. And we're delighted when the family moved back and he rejoined us. So he's actually been with us for a number of years now. Caleb is in 5th grade. He's in middle school. Another student ambassador who we just treasure and adore. Caleb, we'd love to hear what you could say about CES.
Thank you, Ms. Gerber, for that introduction, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to everyone. And the topic today that I would like to talk about is a student's perspective about the CES coronavirus response. And the first aspect that I would like to talk about is the virtual transition. And on March 12, 2020, students were sent home due to the safety concerns from the school about safety for the students and faculty. And on March 12th, we went home with plentiful of materials and supplies, and only in 4 days, on March 16th, we began virtual school. And the quality on virtual school versus in-person school is a little different, but we had some issues about technology and schedules, but we figured it out. And there's troubleshooting and materials, but even though that we were safe learning at home, the faculty felt like the best way to teach and learn is in person. And that leads us to my second aspect, which is hybrid transition. And since the teachers felt like school is best in person, CES developed a return plan. So on January 25th, 2021, a new school year, CES welcomed students back. And CES realized that we still needed to keep safe even in in-person school. So we practiced social distancing, face masks, and a daily symptom checklist. And as soon as we got back to CES, for me, an example, my health and learning changed dramatically. And I am so thankful to be part of the CES community. And now in summary, CES has done a tremendous job handling the coronavirus, and not only just in virtual school, but to bring us back together again. And I am so thankful to be part of this school. And thank you so much for letting me speak. Thank you.
We are thankful to you, Caleb. Thank you very, very much for your time and those wonderful words. And Izzy is actually in 9th grade now. Izzy is an alum. Izzy is a member of our class of 2020. Izzy joined us in middle school, so we didn't have the benefit of knowing her from preschool or kindergarten, but Izzy arrived with a sparkle and a flair that we fell madly in love with instantly. She also was a student ambassador while she was here. And we are delighted, Izzy, that you are returning. Of course, we'll never let you leave. CES alums are part of the family forever. But thank you so much for coming back and telling us a little bit about your CES experience.
Of course, I'm so happy to be back. CES is my second home, so I can't say no. Okay, so hello, my name is Isabella Goodman, like Ms. Gerber said, and I'm a CES alumni, class of 2020. First off, I want to say that CES is a place like no other, hands down. Before I came to CES, I struggled with finding where I belonged in a social and learning environment. It was challenging for me to focus and grow socially and intellectually. When I came to CES, it was like a breath of fresh air, or like the clouds disappeared from that part of my world. Obviously, every new kid is nervous and anxious for their first day of school, but the minute after someone came up to me with the warmest welcome, all of that fear melted away. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to wake up early. I mean, that's unusual. But it's true. In the 6th grade, my class worked together to raise $15,000 in order to have a well built by an organization called Water for South Sudan. After an entire year of rallying our CES community behind the 8 of us, we did it. And I will remember the feeling and moment forever. I remember the people I shared it with, the people that helped, and all the important moments along the way. I hold it in my heart and use it as inspiration to continue to do good and make change, especially when it seems difficult. Now, that is just one major example of the impact CES has made upon me as an individual. I have learned core values such as kindness and compassion, which CES has rooted into me. CES produces genuinely beautiful people. Every person I know that's left here will do something with their lives and will remember what's right each and every day. Now that I graduated, I continue to remember things daily from CES. They just randomly pop into my head. And I truly miss CES and wish I could do it all over again. The warm environment, the loving community, and the nurturing atmosphere make it feel like a second home, and I was very sad to leave. But now I'm a freshman at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School with 600 other freshmen and 2,300 kids overall. Big difference, I know. But I was completely prepared for this transition because of CES. I was used to having a small world with few people, but in no time I got used to the opposite. CES made me flexible and able to adapt. By having a small community, I learned to take initiative and address problems myself because they affect everyone. Even though my world has become much larger, I still apply the same principles I learned at CES to navigate this new challenge. I encourage you to explore CES as a possible path for your child because all children thrive here. Thank you.
Oh, Izzy, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. You just remind us how much we love you and how much we hope we see you again soon. Thank you, Izzy. Let's hear from some of our teachers. Again, we've got a lower school teacher, a middle school teacher, and a teacher to speak to our special subject area. Becky Filderman is not only our kindergarten teacher, she is also our lower school team lead. So she's can speak to you about the full breadth of the lower school experience here. Becky has been with us for many, many years and has a strong education and extremely strong teaching experience. Couldn't be happier that she's here, and thank you for joining us, Becky.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you. Hi, everyone. As stated, I'm Becky Filderman. This is my 7th year at CES. And as you've heard in abundance already, it's hard to put into words the experience you get once entering into this building. It's best understood when you walk into the doors. And I've heard that from parents numerous times. You just get an overwhelming feeling of warmth once you, especially in our lower school, we're very colorful down in the lower school. And I can boil down from what I've heard from parents and from my own experience as a teacher. Top 3 huge benefits to lower school CES experiences is strong academics, character development, and the sense of community. And you're going to hear that word over and over and over again for a reason. And I'll speak to that in a second. Strong academics, again, it's been stated by our students who said it very eloquently, as did Janet, but there's definitely a strong emphasis on collaborative and team building exploration. This transcends from middle school, but starts in pre-K and kindergarten. I am the kindergarten teacher, so I can speak to that. The huge stress on working together as a team. For example, kindergarten just finished, yes, I'm not mincing words here, finished our first research project. And yes, it was a research project. I could go into detail, I won't, but students had to work together. We did it in a very safe way and an adjusted way because of COVID, but students worked together in small groups. I had a kindergartner on here. I don't see her anymore. Her little head was popping up, but students had to work together to agree on an animal that they all wanted to research. So they had to kind of come to an agreement, and some friends didn't get what they wanted, but they worked together. They then had to research that animal, and then they had to create a poster and then present. We do a lot of presenting, even in lower school. And as you can hear from our very well-spoken students, that's a key factor in language arts in general. We really stress presentations at our school. Small classroom sizes are another huge benefit to the lower school. For many reasons, a huge reason being it allows our teachers to get a well-rounded understanding of the whole child. And we really, really stress that the whole child is our ultimate goal in understanding their learning needs, but also, that helps us to get to know the student and their family. And it's not just, it doesn't stop with the student, and that leads into the sense of community. Excuse the clock. Definitely a close community between not only the teachers and the students, with the help of the small classroom sizes, but the teachers and the parents. I have to say, I address my parents as co-teachers because I can't do my job effectively without them. And that's kind of the mindset for all of our lower school teachers. We need your input, we need your collaboration in order to effectively help your children grow socially, academically, emotionally, all of the above. So there's definitely a strong sense of community amongst teachers and parents through working together on the gala that is coming up, huge event every year. The PA, the Parent Association, involves not only parents, but teachers. We work together for all sorts of different school events, planning and executing those events. And then the sense of community amongst the the school in general and the outside community of Rockville. It is not uncommon, especially pre-COVID, but we're slowly getting out into the community again. Not uncommon to see a class walk down to the library, downtown Rockville Library, on a bright sunny day like today, or go take a walk over to Baskin Robbins downtown Rockville. That's not uncommon for your class to take a brain break and go explore downtown. It's just a perk of our location, but also the sense of community that we built with our neighbors. We worked really hard on fostering that relationship with them. So lower school, we go trick-or-treating over to the police station every year. They ask for us, literally will call us up around September, end of September. They'll call Janet or our Maggie, our secretary in the office, and they'll say, are you guys still coming? Are you still coming? We're ready for you. We're getting ready for October. And then we also go over to trick or treat with the mayor, and she always asks for us as well. So this sense of community, you can't fake it. And it's definitely prevalent. Once you enter those doors, you will get an overwhelming sense of what you are hearing today about all these benefits to being at CES. So I could go on and on and on, but I'm going to stop right there. If you have any questions about lower school, please let me know during the Q&A afterwards.
Becky, thank you so much. Let's hear from middle school. Susan Scola is also in her 7th year at CES, and I'm going to tell you a quick secret about Susan. She teaches primarily our 7th and 8th graders. She'll tell you more about that. And I will tell you that our 6th graders sometimes start getting kind of nervous because Susan is extremely diligent, see Izzy nodding? Izzy's nodding. Extremely rich, substantive program, phenomenal. High expectations, and they get a little nervous. When they graduate, and you can nod yes or no, Izzy, when they graduate, it is often Mrs. Scola that they talk about in their graduation speeches to the community, and it is often Mrs. Scola that they first ask for when they come back to visit. So, Susan, we're delighted that you can spend some time talking to us about your experiences as a middle school teacher.
You're muted. You're muted. You'll have to restart.
Sorry. Thank you, Janet. That was really lovely. I have been here for 7 years, and I do teach 7th and 8th grade in the middle school. Our middle school is 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so we kind of have a lower middle school and an upper middle school. So it's a lovely way to transition the students from 4th grade into the idea of middle school. 5th grade is unique unto itself. Then 6th grade, as we scaffold, gets a little bit more demanding. And then when we get to upper middle school in 7th and 8th grade, we're really trying to get ready for high school. That's one of our big goals. So there are many layers to what we do here at CES. And I think that you can tell from the students that you've heard today, character is one thing that's very important to us. And we have a program called our Cardinal Character Traits that we emphasize every month. We kind of focus on a different trait. And it's just very wonderful to see these students embrace these ideas and live them. And we're proud of that. I had Caleb's idea too, to share with you something, because I teach English and history. My 8th graders reflected on this experience of COVID, and I just thought I'd share a couple of things with you that they said, because I just was impressed with the way they thought and even some of their poetic ideas. One student said, "How quickly can 2 weeks turn into a year? I experienced a period I never thought I would live through, and it was scary and hard to see the other end of the tunnel." But she went on to talk about what she was thankful for and putting herself in somebody else's shoes and imagining those who had suffered perhaps more than she had. And it's just a wonderful thing to see the empathy that we have in our students. Another student said that I felt miserable and downcast and depressed. Still, I'm thankful for my parents who supported me through this terrible time. And I'm thankful for my school so I could continue to learn in these unprecedented times. And I'm thankful for CES too. This has been the hardest teaching year of my life. Every teacher will tell you that. But we have really, really tried our best to maintain a high level of academic excellence for our students. And I think that we have managed to do that in some amazing ways. And we've been very mindful of screen time. It seems like such a strange circumstance when teachers have been trying to tell parents for years, please watch the screen time of your children. And then suddenly they're on the screen all the time. So I'm a little bit more old school, and my students still have old school textbooks, and they have reading assignments that they are not doing online. I want them to get off that sometimes. I want them to write. I want them to look around them and not just always be on the screen. So we've tried very hard. Mrs. Stone also told you that STEAM is very much embraced here at CES, but I'm here to tell you that history is still alive and well at this school, and that is a very, very important point, because there are very many schools across the country where history has fallen off the plate because of STEAM. And it's absolutely vitally important that our students know history, not just the history of our country, although that's basically what I teach. And I also teach civics to 8th graders because we want them to be responsible citizens and leaders in whatever capacity they will follow and when they graduate and are adults. So it's a wonderful place for students to learn and be well prepared for high school. We teach not just content, but character and context and the ability to think critically. These are all very important to us. And next week, my 8th graders will be filming this year their Shakespeare scenes. In the past, we've been able to do that, and we've been happy to be able to perform at the Folger for the Secondary Shakespeare Festival. And it was ironic, Izzy will remember this very well, that the day we were supposed to perform in the Shakespeare Festival last year was the very first day that it was announced that the school was going to close down. So we had that last moment, and the kids performed for some of the students at the school, and then everybody went home. And we had to start to do things differently, but we did it. And I think that we've been successful, and certainly you've seen from our students that that's the #1 example. So I hope that you will consider CES. It's a great place to be.
You're muted, Janet.
Thank you, Susan, so much. Edwin Jacob. Edwin is our music teacher for all grade levels here at CES, has been unbelievably creative, not only during virtual learning, but how he is teaching now in a safe and very, very fun way. Edwin has been with us just a couple of years, but quickly became a very important member of the faculty and community and a big part of the glue. He is our middle school team lead as well. So Edwin will talk about the role of the special subjects here at CES. And thank you, Edwin.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, so I know we have our core subjects, we have our maths and our sciences and all of those things, English, history. We cannot forget our special subjects. I think I am completely biased, but I think they are as important as all of those other things. I am a music teacher. I have my background is jazz, so I am used to improvising and being creative in those ways. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the specials in general and how, honestly, they've impacted basically this mental health situation going on in COVID as well, because I think the specials play a particular role in that. As was said earlier, all of the specials like to be outside if we can, especially PE. Mr. Zuniga runs a very diverse program, like you saw, fencing, swimming, ballroom dancing, bowling. Like, I mean, there's bowling too. Like, they do everything, as well as our after school program is sports with basketball and soccer. It's incredible what he's done with in-person and virtual kids during the pandemic, by recording, whether recording or doing live sessions. I'm hearing him do live sessions in his room. He's doing live sessions for the kids in his room in that place. And I think that's just awesome. Just the creativity that he has used, especially in the spring semester of last year, 2020, when we had our field day. We had a special type of field day where it was streamed and they were doing all different types of random things with like laundry and things, just to be, it was kind of incredible to even watch that. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, just to be that creative with everything like that. Spanish, I can't say enough about the Spanish program currently. Senora Johnson is amazing. And she uses music as well as PE. They use music every day. Spanish uses, every morning, I mean, not every morning, but every beginning of every class, they dance and they sing. That's what they do. It doesn't matter what grade level. It all goes all the way up. And it's the coolest thing. I hear them every day. Library. I can't say enough about library because of what that represents. Books, right? We have to understand that our books, how to care for books, understanding reading, fiction, nonfiction, understanding the Dewey Decimal System, understanding how to use the library. We want to be able to do those things, even in a virtual setting. And I think that's great. I'd love to talk about art as well. Just recently, I had all the kids that were virtual and everything. They came in for the like a little art program to set up for the gala that's coming up. We had a little art project for 8th grade and I believe 7th grade as well. I think it went all the way to 6th grade, but everybody came in person for that to do those things. I thought that was great. The music program, the music program for me has been quite interesting, to say the least, because I am a person that is hands-on and likes to use instruments and likes to use those things, but I couldn't do exactly what I wanted to do this past year. But typically we would be using instruments. We'd be doing Orphan Kodali, where we play using our rhythms, and we'd be using, we still do use Kodali, which is solfege. We use do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, with all those things. We did chorus this year. For chorus, when everybody was virtual, I had everybody send in a video of themselves singing over a track using their headphones, and I put them all together. I'm sure you've seen something like that where you've done that. I did that because I had that skill set in video. So I put that all together, and then they sang all together. It sounded really good too. I was actually really surprised when I put all the voices together. It sounded really, really cool. And I did nothing to the voices. That's all them. That was just all them doing it together. So talking about the creativity, and currently we're doing our musical as well. I recorded the middle school so far, the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade I have recorded already, and it's already edited, ready to go. I have the lower school to do next week, where we're recording the little snippets of musicals. We cannot intermingle the grades, so I have each grade doing a specific scenes from musicals. So I think that'll end up being kind of fun too, even though it's not in front of an audience, and that's kind of weird, especially for students. You need that kind of vibe from them. But hey, I think it's going to work out really well. In addition to that, I like to talk about I also did music appreciation, music history, music theory during the pandemic, and I will continue to do that after the pandemic as well. And we also have a strings program that was also mentioned also, and it is optional, but I think instruments are so important to I know I do the chorus, but to have that, I have a keyboard right in front of me I use every single day. So me using an instrument as well as that, really, it makes you smarter. Like, I know they say that in all the time with music, that actually makes you smarter, and it does. It does make you smarter. So every single one of those things, the creativity, the collaboration between the kids, all of that stuff helps with your mental health as well. I mean, I just can't say it enough. Like, just seeing all the specials do their thing, it just lightens them, it brightens them up every single day. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. Well, we do have I see Dr. Regier is here, and a couple of the students are here. The teachers are here for Q&A. Nicole Stone is here. I do want to tell you that I know we have a number of prospective families here who are looking at CES, and I'm so delighted. I've talked to many of you. Some of them have done virtual tours. Some we've had great phone conversations. I'm so happy to see you. And please know that we all very much hope that you will take the next steps in the admission process. I will follow up with all of you and am right here to help. We would love to welcome you to CES. So let's go ahead, and probably the most efficient way to do a Q&A is through the chat. If it becomes casual enough and comfortable, maybe we'll just talk depending on the number of people, but let's start with it through the chat feature. And if everybody knows how to put in a question down, if you just take your mouse and scroll, kind of let it drift down to the bottom, you'll see a toolbar, and the very middle icon says chat, and click on that, and the chat bar on the right will open up. Type in a message and we'll get right back to you. Oh, and Nicole, if you'd prefer to answer it, otherwise I'm happy to talk about LIFT and how that has impacted our program.
I actually can't see the questions. I think it's limited to direct messaging to you.
It's okay, then I'll read the question.
Yeah, read them out, and I'm happy to answer. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and if and I'm, anything I can help with, you let me know. Yeah, we have a question, and whoops, it just drifted away, but it was, can you tell us more about the LIFT program, which, was how our team building experiences first started. So
actually, I think it was like 10 years ago or 9 years ago, there was a partnership put together with Johns Hopkins University, and they were incorporating, implementing, and teaching us about this LIFT program. And the LIFT program, the basic tenet is really this group work idea, but it's not just group work. It's teaching children how to work in groups. It's not just throw them in a group and hoping they run off and do good group work. So it was a process where, you guide the students in how to best work in groups and how to deal with conflict that comes up in a group. And you assign, it starts even in the lower grades, and you assign the roles, you teach them what that role means, you alternate roles, so each of them gets to learn how to do those roles. And that's something we have done over the years, is not just throw them together in a group, but really help them moderate and effectively work in a group, and then judge, well, how could they have done that group work better? What went wrong? What could we do better? And it emphasizes things like free riding and taking charge, like the two opposite, like the kids who want to do all the work because they just want to get it done, versus the kid who doesn't want to do anything. So how do you deal with those kinds of situations that come up in groups? So that there's a great idea. I mean, it's stuff we do instinctually as teachers, but to really identify that role giving and how to deal with those different kinds of problems that come up in groups.
Another question is, it would be great to hear more about the upcoming move and what those plans are.
Should I address that one too?
Sure.
So we are busy. We are actually, it's the good thing about things like this, you clear up all your mess, right? So we're downsizing into one building, which is where we started as a school, you know, pre-K through 8th. We started in the church building. It's newly renovated. It's actually ready to be moved into by the middle school. We actually designed it for middle school. So we're excited to get over there and be in one building together, which is going to help a lot of that synergy, a lot of that working together between teachers, between chapel partners. It's actually going to make it a lot easier to do instead of traipsing across a parking lot where UPS trucks come barreling through. You know, it's just a better environment for us as a school, and the chapel's right there. So we are in process of downsizing all that stuff you gather over the years and files and furniture, and you know, start streamlining, and then be able to re-envision what we want the next year to look like. How can we capitalize? How can we leverage some of the things we have, like teachers working so closely together can easily incorporate lessons together, both for middle school and lower school. It's going to be an opportunity. And yes, I mean, we're basically doing it over the summer. We're going to get all moved out and into that building by summers, but it really won't have much impact on the lower school, to tell you the truth. It's just the middle school moving buildings.
Question: how often does standardized testing happen?
It happens once a year. And in the middle school, it is in the fall, and in the lower school, it is in the spring. And we are actually doing it in the lower school next month, I think, Becky, right? Yes, we're going to try a light version of a standardized test this spring, just to get a benchmark to see where we're at. I think it's important for us to know, because we didn't do them last spring, right? So to see what's happened in the meantime.
And we don't report our test scores to anyone but our parents. And we've always used standardized testing to inform our instruction. We don't want families or students to feel at all stressed about it, but we want to do the absolute best, and it helps us.
A funny story. I used to teach 6th grade English. So I got my standardized test back from my 6th graders one year, and they tanked the punctuation test, like all of them. It was 18. I had a big class here, and they were lousy. They were like, I couldn't believe how badly they did on punctuation. So guess what? We focused on punctuation that year, and we really worked on it. And you know, it's something like that. When you see a trend going on in a certain class, you know, it helps guide you a little more. Oh, they somehow have this gap here. I'm going to make sure I address that gap.
I don't see any other new questions in the chat. Let's see. But please, typing anything. Oh, let's see. Here's somebody. Sorry, I missed Dr. Regier's talk. Now that students are going back to school in person, but some, whoops, it just slid. Okay. Now that students are going back to school in person, but some students have opted to stay virtual, how can we help reintegrate students now and in the fall to the post-COVID world? So, you know, not everybody has been coming in person. So how do we reintegrate those as they come back? Dr. Regier,
sorry, go ahead.
Or do you
Dr.
think?
Regier. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, it might actually be helpful, because I know, at least in my daughter's kindergarten class with Mrs. Filderman, there are some students who have opted for virtual, and it might be interesting to hear about how she has been integrating them to really feel like a part of the class, because I know that my daughter feels like they are in her class, they are her classmates, and I would love to hear sort of about how that's happening now. I think that might be most helpful.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. So I do have, I had 2 students out of my 10 who were virtual for part or all day. I now am down to 1 student who is virtual for part of the week. So I'm fortunate from a teacher standpoint to have only one student. I know our second grade has about half of her students virtual still. And the best thing that teachers just in lower school in general, myself included, is being well versed in technology. That has been a huge help. Because with a clear understanding of how technology now works, because we kind of had to do a crash course on all of that, using Google Meet and navigating that and training our virtual students, even the kindergartners, to be able to use that independently. That was a whole lesson in and of itself, has been really helpful in really merging the two worlds, virtual and in person, together. So that's one way, is just everyone being well versed in technology and how to use it effectively. My virtual student live streams in every single day. There's a clear schedule as to when he is to live stream into the classroom during lessons. He's also working with our learning support teacher, not because he needs the learning support, but because she's able to give him her time, and that one-on-one guided reading block is really, really helpful to ensure that he doesn't fall behind. So we're really stressing being able to provide our virtual students, even in kindergarten, with as much one-on-one attention from the teachers as possible, even though they are not in person, as are the other students. In regards to making sure that they are part of the classroom community, something as simple as turning our computer around during snack and lunch, and he is there with us and he is interacting with these students. That's been really helpful. I know a lot of classes, second grade especially, because they have a large number of students who are virtual still. Second grade has taken upon themselves, the parents have, this has been spoken to already a little bit, taking it upon themselves to organize field trips or family meetups already outside of school. The teachers involved in that as well. They went on a fossil hunt in the fall. I know that over the weekend, a few weekends ago, they just did a play date on a playground. So those virtual students are able to engage with their peers, maybe not in the school setting in person, but they are able to establish those relationships outside of school. And then some parents are feeling a little bit more comfortable having their children come to school for half of the day. So we try to be very flexible. I have, as this one student who was virtual all day, 5 days a week, his parents are a little bit more comfortable now that all the teachers are vaccinated fully. That's eased a lot of anxieties for everyone all the way around, but he's now transitioning to coming in 3 times a week, which is awesome. So we're really just applauding parents for doing what is best for your family too. I think that's really important. So if you are a parent who thinks, no, I'm not very comfortable with 5 days a week, I always say hats off to you for being super mom or super dad and making that call that's best for your family. I'm a new parent as well, and I made the same call, so I completely understand. But just making parents and virtual students comfortable and confident in the decisions that they have made for their families, and then welcoming them in with open arms, both during live stream and when they choose to send their children in. And we try to be as flexible as possible. Like I said, I have a student who comes in, she's half day. It's a full day kindergarten class, but she streams in after lunch, afternoons she is streaming in. And then again, this little guy is coming in 3 days a week. So we're flexible. We're flexible with our families, and we're very understanding.
And that was great. That was really helpful. And I will add, just from a mental health perspective, that there could be some anxiety on the part of the child about reintegrating into sort of in-person school life if they're at the same school that they were at before, but before they opted for or had to do virtual. kids change a lot over a year's time. And so, you know, they change physically, they grow taller, they kids change. A year is a long time in the life of a child. And so they may be, you know, worried or self-conscious or concerned about, you know, how is this going to go when I am back in person with my peers? And so I think one of the nice things about being at a smaller school and at a school like this is that starting with the example set by the teacher, it's a very welcoming atmosphere. Like I said, filled with empathy and considering and often calling your classmates your friends. So, you know, when I ask my daughter how many students are in her class, she'll say, you know, oh, 10 I have 10 friends in my class. And she means classmates, but she also means friends because that's what they consider themselves. And so having that kind of really accepting, welcoming environment can be very helpful. Kids may be concerned about things like potentially having fallen behind because they're in a virtual environment. So for example, if we have any newcomers to CES next year who are coming from a school where they weren't able to be in person, whatever that school was, you know, they might have some worries about, you know, where am I in terms of, you know, my meeting of whatever milestone it is that you're supposed to meet in X grade. And so I think parents working with the teachers to sort of address some of that anxiety, but then also the teachers, especially in a school like this, really paying close attention and doing one-on-one work as needed, which they're already doing. I know that, you know, they're already doing that in my daughter's class. And you know, just helping each kid, sort of meeting them where they are and doing whatever's needed one-on-one to get them there is a real benefit of having a smaller school. And also just reassure your child that sort of the reintegration process into this sort of social arena that they may not have been in for a year or more might not go perfect, but that's okay. You know, they might feel a little bit awkward at first or some sort of other emotion, but if you're helping your kid sort of build resilience at home and learning to do what I mentioned earlier, which is taking healthy risks, which is kind of going outside your comfort zone, being willing to do that and learn the natural consequences of that. That's what I mean by healthy risk taking and real resilient kids. If you're helping them and giving them the space and the leeway to do that, that can be really helpful when they're coming back into a situation that could be anxiety provoking and give them a little bit more confidence, knowing that they do have that sort of core resilience that starts at home, really.
Thank you, Dr. Regier. Does anyone else want to put a question in the chat? And while we wait just briefly to see, I do very much want to thank all of our presenters, especially Dr. Regier, for that tremendous amount of information, wonderful that you provided. And a huge thank you to those of you who are taking a good look at CES. And I have to say, because I'm thrilled to death as I look at the names of who is here, huge welcome. We have some brand new families who will have enrolled for next year and I'm so pleased. Talk about transitioning. I'm so glad that these wonderful families are getting to know a little bit more about CES by listening to these wonderful presenters. Dr. Regier, the teachers, the students, Nicole, thank you to those wonderful new families. And those of you that are, again, are taking a good look at CES. Nicole, all of us are right here to help with anything along the way as you consider us and hopefully take the next steps. Let's see if we have anybody else. I don't think so. No. Well, thank you all. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Good to see you all. Thank you, teachers, for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.